Hi, I'm Brian English, Wappler forum name Hyperbytes. In this module we're going to continue along our journey of setting up SEO. This module we're going to look at how to update those SEO tags through our admin interface to be able to tweak them to some better settings. So I'll just remind you where we are. We've just left the last module. We had the straightforward table and nothing more, showing our Bootstrap table with the SEO tags in. We obviously have some data in there. So view that data. We can see we have 3 sets of tags in there at the moment. Remember, we programmed out the admin pages and the DMX pages. We've created our SEO SCUD 5, search, create, read, update and delete. So we're ready to go now. What we need to do is to be able to edit any particular entry in there. But we've got a little problem first. It's a little quirk. Well, not a quirk. It's actually a clever piece of design. If you look at the moment, you'll see that for all we see the headers are in that table, we're not actually seeing any data. And it'll really be handy to be able to see some data so we can see what's happening on the page. And the reason for that is that we have set a security restrict on that API action. And that security restrict doesn't just work in the web environment, it actually works internally within the Wappler environment as well, because when we're looking at these pages, it's actually running within an internal web browser. I believe internally it's Google Chrome. So this will actually obey the rules that we applied to it within our API actions, etc. What we would like to do is to actually see some data here, and so we can see what's happening. There's 2 ways to do that. I'll show you the first way, which is my non-recommended way, and that is the security restrict stage we have here. While we are actually working on it in development, we can just simply disable that step. And if I save that, go back into our SEO, you'll see that that data appears because that security restriction is no longer being applied. But that is not, I think, a good way. You could forget to re-enable that step when you go back into your production environment, and people could be using that as a backdoor to be able to inject data into your update data in your SEO tables. So there is another way. If I refresh that, our data is gone because I've reapplied that security restrict. And the other way is a side effect of the fact that we are actually running this inside a browser. So what we can actually do is run that login inside Wappler itself, and Wappler will internally look at what securities permissions you are allowed and apply them within Wappler. And it's pretty easy to do. All we've got to do is I'm going to open our login page. Now what I'm going to do is you'll see the I here at the end, preview mode, and that effectively means that you are running live within that browser window there. Now we can actually enter our details. Enter our password. And I'm going to log in. I'll click the remember me as well, because I probably want to keep logged in as admin for quite a period now. So click on login. We've got the response that we would get if we'd logged in within a web browser, exactly as we expected. Now if we go back now into SEO and we refresh that page, we can now see that data. We can see that data because we are actually logged in internally within Wappler. So we're now going to my properties page. You'll see we probably didn't need all of these cells within this table to be shown at this stage. We could easily have just pruned them down to a few, but at the moment what I want to do is I'm just going to go into that first header. I'm going to right click, I'm going to click insert before, I'm going to create another header. I'm now going to do exactly the same in cell. I'm going to right click, I'm going to pick insert before, and I'm going to click a cell. And then within that cell, I am going to place a button. I'm going to give that button a color, and I'm going to pick red, and you'll see why. Actually, no, we won't. Sorry, we'll pick green because this is an edit. I can take that text out, and then we can select the button. I'm now going to go into the properties panel here. I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to pick Font Awesome icon. You then have to scroll down a little bit more, click on the flag, and I want a pencil icon to show edit. So let's pick our pencil icon. Let's make it a little bigger because it's a bit small there. And then I'm going to go back into that button. I'm actually just going to take that word button out completely. So what we're left with now is a button with showing edit, you know, the classic edit symbol. And what I tend to do in a table situation is I make those block level. That just means they will automatically fill the field, and we can actually take the text of that header out completely. Okay, so we have an edit button now. I'm just going to save that at this stage so that we can consolidate where we are. So now we need to look at what are we going to do when we click that button. Well, what's going to happen is, first of all, it's going to pull the individual record to which that edit button would apply. So it's this data to the right of the button. It's going to pull that over from the server, and we're going to do that by using our pre-created read action. Remember, it pulls a single entry in based on an ID sent to it. And then we're going to pop up a dynamic modal. We're going to then create a form inside that dynamic modal, which will allow us to edit those details. And then we're going to obviously have the ability to update those, confirm the update, and refresh this screen. So let's add the appropriate components that we need. Now, first thing we're going to do is we're going to add a new server action. What we're going to do is we're going to use that read that we created before to be able to pull that single individual record out that applies to the row of data in which that edit button resides. So we'll call that single SEO, so I know exactly what we're doing. And the action I'm going to call is that admin SEO read action. Now obviously when that page first loads and we haven't clicked on any buttons here, that action is not actually going to need to run. So there is an option here we can say which is no auto load, and that suppresses it. But also what struck me here is we have no input parameters. So perhaps I have missed something in that read action. Let's have a look and see if we have any in actual fact, that SEO ID for a read should actually be a get action, not a post action. And I'm just going to check that action there, and that should actually say SEO get, not post. Sorry, that's quite a glaring mistake by me. So now if we just reload that action, we can see that it's now asking for the SEO ID, which is what I would expect it to do in a get action. But we don't need to populate that because at this stage that action does not auto load. So let's save that now. Let's now go to our button. Notice it clicks on the font awesome. Just click up there onto the button, and what we need to do is to say, okay, in the event of a click on that button, we want to run that server action, want to load it, and we want to load it using the parameter of that SEO ID, and we pick that from inside the table body repeat area. It's really important, and you can tell if you pick the right place generally because it will not be prefixed by any table descriptions, etc. It will simply say the name of that field. So I'm just going to select that at the moment because we need to do our next stage, and our next stage will be, just pull that down again, to add a couple more things up here. We got to add first of all our dynamic modal that we're going to use to display the table, and surprise surprise, I'm just going to add notifications in as well, just so we can give pass messages to the users. So right, if we go back now to our event from our button click, what we want on that button click is for it not just to load in the data that we need, we also want it to, oops, sorry, misclicked. We also want it to open that modal for us. So we just say dynamic modal 1. I'm just going to cancel that. It's better to give these names. You will forget if you don't. If you've got multiple modals on a page, you can get very confused. So I'm going to call that modal edit. Just save that. Back into our button click action. Onto our button, down to our dynamic events. We've got our load action. We now want to open that modal edit screen. Okay, so we save that. So now, actually, if we run it in preview mode and click that button, you will see that that actually pops up that modal for us automatically, and that's what we want to happen. So now we need to look at how are we going to create that form within the modal to be able to edit that entry, and actually Wappler will do that for us. So if I go into the modal body, it's got a paragraph in there. We really don't need that anymore. I like to, and I know it's not strictly required, but I like to put our container row column setup in there. Then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use the Bootstrap form generator to create the form. So we have Bootstrap 5 form generator. We click on that. It will ask for, first of all, for a server action, and that is a server action which will do the update. So we go down to admin SEO update. You'll see that knows all of the fields that we've got. And what are we going to populate it from? Well, we're going to populate it with the values which were returned by that single SEO query. So you see we've got all that. We've got a submit button automatically created. If I click OK now and save that, see we're still in preview mode. So if I click that now, sorry, it's just having a moment to save. We should have been able to actually to open that inside Wappler. For some strange reason it's not. In fact, that Modal is now refusing to open. I think we might have a small Wappler crash here, so let's have a look and just do a quick reboot just to be safe. I think that's probably the best thing. Okay, so I've just rebooted Wappler. Not quite sure what happened there. Basically, if you have strange behavior within Wappler, I would strongly recommend that you just restart it before you start thinking about bug reports. At the moment, we're actually in quite an early version of Wappler version 5. We're just on 5.0.2, so I suppose understandable that there might still be the odd glitch that hasn't been caught yet in this particular version. But hopefully now, if we click on here, yeah, we get the form open that we expected to get. So let's do a bit of a tidy up now, because that was far too small. So let's make that a large modal. We can actually make it extra large. We can, if we really want to, also make it full screen. But to be honest, I'm not a big fan of full screen modals. It sort of seems to defeat the object of what we're trying to achieve. I'm just going to change its title here. So we will need to take that out of preview mode and back into edit mode now. That's edit SEO. We can give that header a bit of color, background color. White probably shows out better in there. This is the SEO ID that is showing there. I really don't want anybody messing with that at all. So we can either hide it by changing that to a hidden field, or we could alternatively just disable it, and that way people will be able to see the SEO number but not be able to change it at all. So we'll go with that. So there's our fields that we have now. I'm going to save that. That was very, very easy and simple to change the form. By default, Wappler sticks a Save Changes button down there, which, to be honest, I very, very rarely use. So let's just take that button out. So now we've got our situation where we click on our button, we open our form, we update our values, we click Save. That's a submit button, so that will submit that information back to your database and update it. What we need to do then, of course, is we need to be able to close this modal. We need to be able to refresh this list here, and I also tend to like to clear the form as well, so when they click on the next one, they don't get a brief glimpse of the previous data. How do we do that? Well, we go into our modal form. You see it's already set up itself for the update. Click into our dynamic events, and in this case our server connect success. In the event of success, we want to do three things, we said, didn't we? First of all, we want to hide that modal. I also want to do reset the form. I'll do that first, although it shouldn't really matter. And then lastly, I'm just going to pop up one of those little notification messages to say updated. That's our action. So that will do everything we said there. But there's one other thing I like to do with the modal, because of course people might just hit that close button rather than saving, or the close button up here. So we also have an additional few actions here on a modal, dynamic events, and we can say modals on hide, and I would just like to reset that form when we hide that as well. So I think we're about ready to have a look and see what happens with that. I'm going to go into the browser, we'll just try and update and we'll see what's happening. Can I just, while I remember, did I actually do everything that needs to be done with that form? I don't remember refreshing this list. So let's have a look back in there, back into our form. Let's have a look at our dynamic event. Yeah, we reset it, we hit the modal, we put up the message. I would also want to refresh the list. That list comes from the con SEO, so we just click load. That will reload that list, and that will then show the updated values in the list if all goes well. So let's open that in the browser. It's going to ask us to log in, obviously. Let's log in. We haven't actually added any menus at the moment, so let's just now fire up that directly out of browser. Out of Appler. There we are now, we can see. So what I would like to do is perhaps change the tags for the home page. So let's update one of the fields. I'll just change the description page. You might get a little bit of a surprise here. What happens? We click that because actually that hasn't updated. Why not? He cries. Well, actually the reason is I'm sort of using a mistake as a teaching point. Remember when we set this field to disabled? By disabled, that means that it's actually not fed back to Wappler at all. Actually what we really want to do is to make it read-only, so that people can't update it, but it is still an active field. So I'm going to save that. I want to go back into our list. I'm just going to do a quick refresh on it. I want to now click the edit button. Type a bit more now because I know it's going to work. And you see now that immediately that has been updated. So there's another little tip: don't use disabled if you want to just show something but make it not editable. Make sure that you make that read only. So there we are now. We've got our SEO updates there. We could extend this further at a later date by allowing us to literally click and pick the image URLs, but for the moment I'm just going to keep it simple. Because we have other areas that we want to move on to, and we'll be dealing with image management later on in the course. So I think we'll call that an end to this particular module on SEO for the moment. I'm going to go on to user management very soon, but before I do that I just want to introduce a bit of a standalone module really, and that standalone module is all about joins, subtables, multi-references, just so you understand how these different types of join work and what the data structures are surrounding the results. So thanks for joining me on this one, and I hope that you'll join me in the next module.